Hello, welcome to Joos. My name's John McDonald, and today we're going to make a simple table arrangement just using a range of materials that are quite an interesting combination. So we've got some beautiful dark callas, we've got some lovely red roses, we've got this flower which the Dutch call trick, but it's really a dianthus, which is essentially a carnation. We've got some lovely foliages, I've got some hosta, some lamb's ears, a little bit of pine because I felt it tied in quite nicely, and we've just got some ruscus and a little bit of waxflower. So a nice combination of flowers, but what we wanted to use today was this, basically this grid cube. So this is something you can make at home just from a roll of wire, and you can basically create essentially a block, like a block of foam, but not a block of foam. And this is giving you multiple points where the stems can be secured. So not only is it going to pass through here, it'll pass through the middle section and into the base section. So hopefully this is going to be enough of a mechanic to create an arrangement that we would probably have used some foam for, but we don't need to. And to be honest, if we can avoid foam, then that's a good idea because it saves on microplastics. So job number one, add some water. Now I did use this before in a deeper container and it worked very, very well. So in some ways this is an opportunity to use this in a low container and see if we also get a good result. So obviously I know if everything is touching the water, and that's really the important thing, is to know that your flowers are in water. So, and 100% flowers will prefer to be in water rather than in any other format. So tubes only hold limited water. Foam is good, but it will not be as good as just straight water. So this is the difference actually here, is if I was using this in foam, I could get that to sit down. But because we don't have that, we need to put a bit of a bend on this, which actually I can do not too bad with my pine. And the same with this piece here, we can just give it a little bit of a manipulation and that is going to solve our problem. But other materials such as the ruscus, it's not an issue, it's got a nice bend on it anyway. And it's really when you start to use this inner tube that's been created that you actually get the really good grip on your materials. And I do want to get a little bit of length out here as well, so just bring that out. What I did was I secured the block into the container with a little bit of tape. So I just basically taped it to the inside of the vase, and that has worked really well. I might have guessed that would happen. I don't know what this foliage is, but it grows at the bottom of my garden. It's part of the hedge, and it's really good for just chopping and using as a foliage. But as you can see, once you go through the 2 points with the flower stem, then you get a really good, secure hold of the material. Now I've got some little lamb's ears, so we're cleaning off any bad leaves or any leaves that would be down into the water, because they're going to spoil the water, make it go bad, and that will just decrease the the life of your arrangement. Though by having everything held in a container or in a mechanic like this, then essentially it's easy to change the water because everything's fixed. So we're just building this up, and this is just going to be quite a simple open garden style design. So at this point I just want to make sure that we've not got any bad bits at the edge of the container, because you tend to miss them later on once you've added more volume. And now's a good time just to check that we've actually covered our edges well. So I don't think we need them anymore. Now we can start adding our flowers. This is the thing, I actually quite like having a bit of space round about. So I hate it when there's lots of stuff just sitting and you really can't see what you're doing. So our first main flower is really going to be these lovely red roses. So what I've done is I've already dethorned them, and I'm still making sure that these are going to go down into the water. Now these have actually got quite nice foliage on them, so in some ways it's saving us on foliage. And as you can see, they're sitting really nicely. I think if you've got, or this is how I was trained when I first started working in flowers, was if you've got an expensive flower like a rose. Now, I find that a little bit funny because roses now you can buy in so many places at so many different price points. It's quite funny to think of them as a really luxurious flower. But they really were, and they all were. And you had to treat them with care and attention and really get the best out of them. So I was always told, place them in such a way that you really see them to their best advantage. And I think that's still really good advice. Now, for our centre area, we're going to use some anthuriums. And this is really just to create a contrast and a little bit of texture and a little bit of interest as well. And then we can start to add our callas. Now these ones are actually a little bit soft, but what they'll like is they'll like the fact that they're just really in water in this frame. Like you can see they're sitting nicely, but once they do this, you can tell that the stems are really quite soft. That's them at danger of starting to turn. So I would say if they're like that and you're going to buy them, I would go for a different colour if they've got a better stem. But if you've got them and they're like that, just keep an eye on them because they can really change very quickly overnight. And you're left with even just one going all slimy is not going to do the rest of the arrangement any good. But these callas are lovely. And actually this mechanic is working really well for just keeping these nicely held at a good angle. And then we can start to add our little interesting bits. So we've got our trick, which I love because it's got just that funky shape to it. And it gives a bit of texture, makes this a bit more interesting maybe. One of my favourite flowers is probably Craspedia, which you've seen me use a lot, and that's the little yellow globe flowers. And these are basically giving me a green version, so I love it. And I just like this contrast between the colours of the red and then the shapes as well. Where do we want to put you? Yeah, this one's really not happy, so we're just going to leave you out because you're not going to behave. But I am going to use these little santini, just going to clean off the leaves and bring that in. And again, this is giving another contrast, but picking up on the shape of the trick as well. Now I can feel that all those stems are going into the water really, really well. You'll know that I quite like a bit of asparagus fern. I think it just gives a bit of texture and it can finish things off quite nicely. Not everyone likes it, but I think it's a little bit like Gypsophila. It's knowing when to stop. But just that wee line that it can create coming through the design, I think is quite interesting. So it's a bit like a ribbon in there. So I'm going to stop at that, and there we go. We have got a rather nice table arrangement, a table centre. The colour combination is really striking, especially with the green, because people don't expect green as a colour for flowers. But we've also used an interesting mechanic, and it has shown that it's quite possible, if you've got a nice low tray with a little bit of depth, that you can create a design that doesn't have to be in a deep container using a wire base. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have and you've not already subscribed, then click here to subscribe. We have new videos out regularly and we'd love you to join us for our next design. So until then, stay safe and we'll see you soon.